we use every day. About a little bit, the English Bible. And we'll talk about the time when the Bible in English was banned. But what I'd like to do first, before we get started, talking about what books have been banned and what kind of is going on. So I want us to consider our identity as individuals in the church. Would you ban or challenge a book? And the way we're going to find this out, I see some no's, but I want you to weigh me. So we're going to go around for people who want to talk about pet peeves. And I'll share my pet peeve with you. It's been the same pet peeve for years. I'm exiting the freeway. I'm in a nice little line, as I always stop to do. And there's someone who pulls beside me with their blinker going and stops all the traffic behind them to get off the freeway. Major pet peeve. And if someone wrote a book on strategies to cut in like that, I might be a little pissed off. So you can either share a pet peeve like this, or you can share a more serious concern. My example would be hate speech that I sometimes see. So who would like to share either a pet peeve or a major concern? What someone else is doing.
About banned books or about things in general?
Just things in general, not books at all, actually, in this part, just something in general. Your pet peeve or something that upsets you, yes.
Well, you got me on the traffic thing. A pet peeve I have is people who have big loud mufflers out their car and can't wait to show it off.
And I bet not only are there YouTubes on how to do that, but I'm sure there's a few books out too on how to make your muffler loud. Somebody, Jan.
I want to be serious. I have a real concern about loneliness in our society and how that affects people's decisions and how they try to feel their loneliness, make their loneliness go
By
bad decisions or maybe good decisions, but which is it's sad.
Yeah.
And I think the church needs to figure out ways to reach out that seem real to people that are lonely and not like they're just going to be, oh, good, another person in the pew.
To hear those people, to hear what they're going through and connect with them.
Yeah. And help people. I guess there's lots of secular ways to get people together, but I think not only is there loneliness, but there's spiritual hunger. I think somehow the church can help with that.
That's such a good point. And I wonder about, we'll talk about people organizations that are banning books. Anybody else? I think go ahead.
Because it happens so frequently, I guess it's not quite as anger taking for me. But people take things in a way that implies they know them to be true.
Over and over again. Yeah. And you could write a book like that, how to make a lie sound like the truth. That'd be great, podcast or book. Anybody else?
Not even in fantasy.
And it's not, it's actually, it's nonfiction. Something that bothers you that other people do or say.
Bothers me when signs are put up and after
And so one of the things I want you to think about as we're going forward is that some of these book bans, and I actually removed what I thought were silly book bans because I thought there are no silly book bans, but some of them you look at and like, what were you thinking, And to us, it almost seems like a pet peeve, right? Like this person didn't like this book and they got it banned. But I think that the people in these organizations are heartfelt feelings. And if said we need to figure out where these heartfelt feelings are coming from that makes people organize and ban books. So I want you to keep that in your mind as we go on and talk about that. And my last question was, if you had a magic wand, and could get rid of a book, like no judgment, no one in Newport Presbyterian would ever find out that you used this magic wand, and you found a book that you really thought was not safe for people or good for people and probably shouldn't be out there, would you raise your magic wand?
It's already out there as YouTube and stuff, but anything about making guns or special, yeah, bombs, any of that stuff.
Anybody else? Show of hands, who would magic wand possibly wave that wand if they could? Yeah, there's a few. Yeah, I think that, so when you're thinking about your limit, like, you know, this is very upsetting. I want you to realize that the people who are banning books and organizing, that's how they feel. I don't justify it, but as Christians, our job description is to connect with other people, and the one way we can really connect is to try to understand what's going on. Okay, so here's some fun, and I have a handout for you with sources. But I just wanted to like start with the history because the history is really fascinating and fun and a little sad. We have been burning and banning books ever since there were books. So I'm going to start with the Chinese emperor, excuse my pronunciation, Shi Huangdi. All reads written prior to his reign. And he was, in his own defense, he was very specific. So if there were manuscripts about how to build something or agriculture, he left those alone. But anything to do with history before his reign, he eliminated. He also eliminated, and this is a long time ago, so historians are arguing about this. He also eliminated a lot of scholars too. He was teaching, so he was the man. He was the one who brought China together. Why would he do that? Why would he eliminate history? I think it was a control of information.
Ideas, maybe.
Trying,
Ideas.
yeah, like trying to remove the idea that there was a difference.
And this is because he wanted Chinese history to start with him. And also, he defeated a lot of little kingdoms, and they all had books charting the tree. He just wanted to eliminate that, so there was only version. Now, this backfired on him in that he had destroyed so many intellectuals that when he was overthrown by. He didn't have any support. So he had like the shortest dynasty of the emperors, and it was followed by the Tang dynasty, I think, which was a long time. And they also went back and tried to erase his memory a little bit. You know, so what goes around comes around. And the handout I'm going to give you is there's a podcast about Chinese literature, and it talks specifically about the book burning pit, which was a poem. I'm going to read it to you briefly. Oak melts bamboo strips of books. The imperial work is undone. The ports and rivers vainly lock up the home of the ancestor dragon. The book burning pits are not yet cold, and Shandong revolts. Liban and Salgu originally could not even read. And what's amazing about this poem is that a company in China recently put this up on its website. I'm not quite sure what they were doing, but they lost $36 billion. The world's most expensive poem because the Chinese government read it as a protest to censorship. Because this poem is known by everybody. They didn't until this thing know about the reason behind it. I mean, they knew the name. It's kind of like knowing gather children, and listen and hear about the midnight ride of, yeah, that kind of poem. But anyway, so, you know, just interesting how this poem and those banned books echo even in today. Briefly, the Roman poet Ovid was banished in AD 8, was banished from Rome and died in poverty for writing Ars Amortia, the Art of Love, which is still available. That was banned in the United States in the 1930s. It's erotica, but it was banned. I'm going to skip the wise, but I want you, one of the readings that you can go is Bannings and Burnings in History. I'll send you the link. It is just a romp through kind of the worst bannings of books in history throughout the world. Everywhere from the Chinese Emperor Shi Hung to Salman Rushdie and the Hunger Games. I mean, it just covers everybody. In 35, the Roman Emperor Caligula opposed reading the Odyssey by Homer, written more than 300 years before. Why? Why ban the Odyssey when it's 300 years old? Elevated Greek history, and especially the idea of democracy. According to legend, the Caliph Omar burned all 200,000 volumes in the library at Alexandria in Egypt. Why? He said, and this is again, when I'm quoting this history, there are so many arguments about each one I'm saying, because it's so long ago, we don't know specifically what happened. It is said that he said, if these books are glorifying God, that is already in the Quran, so they're repetitious. And if they're not glorifying God, they don't need to exist. Very similar, strangely enough, was Savonarola of Florence. He was a priest. He instigated the bonfires of the vanities. So a book or a poem or a work of art, it doesn't read, actually. Does anyone know what happened to him? The Pope summoned him to discuss his philosophies, and he refused because he was bigger than the Pope. He was on a mission from God. And so the Pope had him burned. And for fuel, they used his own writings.
His own what?
His own writings.
Is that your book of retribution?
Yeah, so there's a lot of strange irony. I'm just going to stop with William Tyndale's English translation of the New Testament. You can tell me what happened to William Tyndale. You Presbyterians! Who's the first one to print the Bible in English? What do you think happened to him? Burnt at the stake. Seriously.
Because they didn't like the translation?
No,
No.
they would not be, because they didn't control the Bible. They could not control the teaching of the Bible. Because everybody could read it. Okay,
You
guys.
want just to have the priests know it, so that,
Yeah,
you know, the priests were controlled.
yeah. And someone had said fear earlier, and I think there is fear in this, you know, a little bit too, you know, fear of letting go. Here's the bad news, guys. And this is from, I'm pretty sure this is from PEN America, and is an organization. You need to know about PEN if you don't. It's an organization founded in 1922. It's international now. It stands at the intersection of literature and human rights to protect free expression in the United States and worldwide. But we champion the freedom to write the word to transform the world. Our mission is to unite writers and their allies to celebrate creative expression and defend the liberties that make it possible. So in the school year, and this is preliminary because it's information, in the school year 2023 to 2024, over 10,000 books were banned and challenged. And what I really want you to notice is this increase. Okay. A book banning, you know, those points in history I showed you, and again, one of the handout will lead you to where you can read tons of points in history where they're banning books. But this is where this is where they're increasing, and we are in a period of time right now when banned books are increasing. So behind the trend. In recent years, there are two key pressures behind the school book ban movement. State legislation and the influence of groups that espouse parental rights rhetoric to advance pro-censorship agendas and goals. Coordinated campaigns by a vocal minority of groups and individual actors place undue pressure on school boards in a chilled atmosphere of overly cautious decision-making. And I'm going to stop there and say, everybody's afraid. I mean, so even if they're not successful, there's just a change in how it feels. Attacks on literature in schools persist despite the unpopularity of parents' rights groups and polls showing broad. This year, the state was also particularly critical in accelerating book bans, making it easier to remove books from schools without due process, or in some cases, without any formal processes whatsoever. Over a dozen new laws and state policies use book bans in school and have been implemented, as have a number of district policies at the local level. One of the there's a lot of politics in this too, our divided country. So again, people taking sides and talking about things. One of the things I read called the vocal minority, people who are trying to ban books. In 2022, PEN identified 50 groups working to ban or challenge books. Here's a chapter map. This is from one of the groups, and I'm not even going to say the name. This is where they have chapters throughout the United States. Okay. On their website, well, most of the groups that I found that were working on banned books, most of them had the word liberty in the name, which I found. Yes, thank you. But thinking of words, the description on their website is something that we as Christians need to look at, because the description words include like stand up, fight, survival, depend. One of the phrases was destructive policies that hurt children and families. So these are people who are very much seeing themselves as on the defense and defending something. And I want you to remember too how you felt, you know, if you would ban a book, or you know, how you would feel. This is how these people feel. And so the question is, how do we reach out to that and engage? Well, I'm sorry, so I'm getting upset. I'm getting on my side, and this slide really does it for me too, because people target a variety of books, but currently materials chronicling the experiences of marginalized people, particularly books authorized or regarded by or regarding people of color and LGBTQIA+ individuals are most vulnerable. People who advocate in the favor of banning books claim that they are not suitable for young people, often basing the claims on their own fears, biases, and assumptions. Young readers frequently look to books that or a sense of belonging, or to learn about perspectives. I'll give an example of Maddie's Fridge, my own book. When I go to schools, someone will raise their hand and they'll say, I'm like Maddie. And that's why you have books about poor children who don't have food, because if there's a child in the classroom who doesn't have food, they will realize that they are acknowledged. And that's what books do. Let me alter your eyes, sorry. That's what books do for young children. They acknowledge their experience. That's what books do for middle grade children. That's what books do for teens. You're acknowledging their experience. Okay, in all your eyes, I'm going to change because we are going to go. Oh, I'm sorry, there's one more, and this will be in your list of materials. Here are the top 10 challenge books of 2023. I think this is from the ACLU. The LBGT books are on this. Genderqueer, All Boys Aren't Blue, This Book is Gay, The Perks of Being a Wallflower, Flamer, The Bluest Eye, Me and Earl, The Dying Girl. Go back, if they don't like a book by one author, they'll go back and ban all of her books, and that's what's happened with Ellen Hopkins. A Teen's Guide to Sex. We need some of these books. The kids trip over them in high schools, and here they are banning a book about sex education, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute. And sex trafficking. So these are not easy topics. You know, these are not topics that, you know, are, some of them are very difficult. Some of the memoirs I think are just fascinating and fun and empowering, but these can be tough topics. We're not saying that they aren't tough topics. We're saying that kids need to read about themselves, and they need to understand other kids who are a little different from themselves. Okay, so I want you to take a deep breath, everybody. Breathe in, breathe out, because we're about to enter the wonderful world of books. Sometimes they're frightening, painful, beautiful, funny, hopeful, sad, but they open up doors in entire worlds. Oops, I'm going to actually, I went too far. This is a quote on Dori's website that I thought was just perfect for today. The author and the reader know each other. They meet on a bridge of words. This is Madeline Bling. I love that idea of meeting on a bridge of words. You know, exploring something together.
I have heard books from band.
Yes. Amazing. Dori, I don't know how your middle name's pronounced, but I'd like to introduce my friend Dori. She's the author of more than 60 books for young readers, including 2-time Gessel award-winning King Kayla series, and the other award-winning Buddy Files series. She grew up in 17 years in Iowa and now lives in the Seattle area, and she was my grandniece and nephew's favorite author. The largest black lab you've ever met in your whole life. And his name is Mouse.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me here today. These are my and I have, if you want to get that, is impending birth of us. So the main character every book is for every person. Challenges before. So I was actually with some of my writing friends. We were, writing together as we did. And I got an email from a reporter in Carrollton. She had taken 3 children to the local library, a place she thought was safe. And she discovered that the children had brought home this book. So rather than take her complaint to the library, she took her complaint to her local Fox News station. And so they were running a story that night. And so the reporter wanted to know if I had a comment. And I wrote back with a very brief comment. I don't remember exactly what I said, but basically, what I just said, that not every book is for everybody, but I like to think that everybody can find the book they need when they need it. And I thought that was the end of it. But the next day, the story went national. It had been picked up by television stations all around the country. And then I was contacted by the TV show Fox and Friends.
Yeah.
They wanted me to appear with the babysitter on the show the next day. Now, I lived in Iowa, the babysitter was in Texas, and this the program happened in New York. I would not do that today, but I did it then. I mean, back in 2011, I thought, you are attacking this librarian and you are attacking my book, and I felt like I needed it. That's not true. I felt like I needed to defend everybody else's right to read my book if they wanted to. So I agreed, much to my husband's dismay. My husband really tried to talk me out of this because he was afraid I was going to get eaten up and spit out. But I really felt like I needed to do this. So I gathered up 3 friends of mine. So what happened was they did not fly me to New York. So I lived in Iowa City, Iowa, which did not have a Fox affiliate. So Fox and Friends sent a limo for me at 4:40 a.m. And 3 of my best friends went with me. Actually, the limo, that's a whole thing too, because the limo was actually scheduled for 4:40 p.m.
Oh,
So I was late, but I got there. And they opened up the station just for this. So I was sitting there, and I had an earpiece, and my friends were standing behind the camera guy. So they could see what was going on, but they couldn't hear what was going on. I could hear New York, but I couldn't see anything. So I never saw the babysitter until I saw the clip after it, later. So I'm sitting there with my headpiece in, and I forget who, since I don't watch Fox News, I don't remember who the person was who started talking in my ear and introduced himself to me, and the babysitter was on. And then he started asking questions, and I didn't know if we were on or not. I honestly did not know. And because he's asking us to go into the whole story of what happened and how did you feel, and we're both getting really upset. And all of a sudden he cut us off because I was trying through it and make my points and be a reasonable person And I felt like I was failing already. But then all of a sudden he cut us off and he said, okay, hold that thought. That is what he said. Hold that thought because we are live in 3, 2, 1. So they got us all riled up just to go live, which was fascinating.
Emotional, fabulous.
Yeah, but you know what? It helped. And so we did the whole thing. And I refused to engage. You know, the babysitter was, trying to bait me. I was not actually allowed to talk very much. If you find the clip, you can see how often I was cut off. Every time I tried to make a point, I was cut off. And it didn't last very long. It felt like forever at the time, but I think it was about a 5-minute clip, and then it was done. And so my friends and I went out to breakfast, as long as we had the limo anyway. And while we were in the place having breakfast, I was watching my email, and all of these people across the country who had seen that were sending me horrible email, calling me who never, and we could watch the comments come in or the reviews come in. They didn't know me, and felt like you email me and tell what they as a teacher had been fired for introducing this book to some students. And so, they wanted the comment and all of that. So yeah, so that's my mom's having, actually,
We have a picture of you in the library.
yes. So it just so happens. Actually, go back one first. So while all of this was going on, I had a big author visit where I visited every school in Ankeny, Iowa. And they, of course, they asked me to sign something saying I would not mention the book. And I did it. I signed it. And I really wish I hadn't now, but 2011 was a different time. So yeah, I wasn't planning on talking about this in schools anyway, but not only this book, they didn't like this book either because at that school, because this is about cyberbullying. And what was the issue with this? Now I can't remember what the issue was with that one. But they were not using this in, I think this was, I was supposed to sign something saying I wasn't going to talk about either of these books. This is about cyberbullying. Oh, and some of what happens in this book is kids are using slurs and, you know, taking issue with somebody being gay. And people didn't like any mention of homosexuality. That was the issue with this. So they weren't using this in the book in the schools either. But then I got to one, so I was there for 10 days, and one of the schools was fascinating because I did my book signing. All these kids had copies of this book that I had signed saying I would not talk about this book. Turned out that school, the parents were very upset that I couldn't talk about it because they thought that it was an important book. And so this group of parents organized, bought copies of this book, and their kids who weren't allowed to hear about this book brought them home. Oh, yeah, okay, so yeah, now we can go, let's go to the next one. So soon after that, I happened to be invited to the Texas Library Association convention anyway. I mean, that had been planned long before this Texas librarian or Texas babysitter challenged my book. And so I got to meet the librarian from Carrollton Public Library at the Texas Library Association meeting. So there we are. She told me that she never met that babysitter. The babysitter only took that story to the media. She never actually came in and even asked the library to remove the book, which this lovely librarian would not have done anyway. But yeah, I was really happy to be able to meet her because, you know, this isn't something that just happened to me. You know, it happened to her too, because her judgment as a librarian was questioned. In fact, I got some emails after that Fox News segment offering me support, but saying, that horrible librarian, I mean, it's her fault. And it's like, no, it's not. No. And that's when I realized that, as an author, a public challenge like this doesn't just happen to me. It happened to her too. And so it was really nice to be able to, I mean, when we met, we hugged each other. We were total strangers. We bonded over that.
Quick question.
Yeah.
How old was the babysitter?
Probably in her 20s. So an adult, yes. So the other thing I know now is that babysitter, she may not have even been an actual babysitter. So there are organizations that do this kind of thing. They tell a story and try and get books removed from the library. So I had help from the Office of Intellectual Freedom. I think that's who they were, to navigate this whole situation. And that's what they told me. They didn't believe she actually existed. This librarian never met the babysitter, had no idea who the kids even were.
They didn't see if you ever checked out the book.
mm-mm. Lost my train of thought. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And Kayla. So actually, this is a series of, for beginning readers. It's about a dog detective and his girl, who solve mysteries. And there are currently 10 books that have been published. I'm currently contracted for 12. 5 of these books are on lists all over the country. For Lois's slide that showed 10,000. I would challenge you to take a look at this book and see if you can figure out why it is people want to ban this book. And I think I'll just leave it at that.
You guys have any questions for Dori?
Is it any particular section of the country that is either for you or overall that's banning?
Yes. So, I mean, it is happening all over the country, but the 10,000 books that have been challenged last year, 8,000 of them happened just in the state of Iowa and Florida.
Wow.
Iowa has changed a lot since I lived there, sadly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Curious, as someone who's often in a similar place of having to navigate, is it worth engaging with people? Not. I know you said that you would not go on Fox and Friends again, if you were faced with something similar. What advice do you have for folks who are facing conflict in that way, and for those of us who would like to be allies with you as you're navigating these things?
Sure. So there's an organization called Authors Against Book Bans. We are national, and you are in that also.
I'm sure I am.
Yeah. Where we're just trying to organize, because that's the issue. Is this is a small but very vocal minority that is challenging 10,000 books. And so we are trying to organize and, help authors who are facing challenges like this, and people who want to help. Yeah, did that answer?
Yeah, anything you have to share.
Yeah.
We watched Elsie's Fan Book Club about MSNBC, and he has the authors on it. And one of the things we've heard, I don't know if it's true, is that a lot of these are like one parent has a say, and maybe hasn't even really read the book, just kind of goes through and looks for keywords, that's it, and then goes to their school library. That's where it starts. So you talk about people having pet peeves, and that's a very focused, methodical approach to causing chaos in a lot of people like you.
Yeah. And that's common, is that people who want books banned often haven't even read them. I would challenge any of you to come take a look at this book and see if you can figure out why it is on challenge lists all over the country.
Did you ever figure it out?
Oh yeah.
You wrote it?
I mean, because someone told you, because otherwise.
That's exactly why.
Are you kidding?
Yep. So that's exactly why.
There's a lot.
Well, you mentioned, didn't you say that 5 of them have been banned?
Yeah, I think they don't know about the other 5.
Yeah.
I'm serious. Yeah. No, it's not even the first 5. They're just brand